Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for sitting around for this talk. I titled it pretty ambitiously, The Future of Energy, Money, and Intelligence, and we'll do our best to cover what the future of those things looks like in 10 minutes. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Beau Turner. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Abundant Minds. We do hosted Bitcoin mining in the Pacific Northwest and Oregon. And my journey into this space was not a smooth one. For those of you who don't know, my wife and I getting into hosted mining lost $500,000 with another provider. It was one of the most painful experiences that we ever went through. It was also one of the greatest learning experiences. And as we'll talk about today, carried a lot of energy in it that led to a lot of transformations in my life. So today, what I really want to speak to you all about is not hosted mining. It really has almost nothing to do with mining at all. If you want to talk about mining, we could talk after the talk. What I want to talk about is energy and thinking about your life in terms of energy, what that means, how that can impact your life, and how you can use that as a model to navigate what I feel is the most rapidly changing environment across industries, across the spectrum of life that any of us have ever lived through. And when we're in these periods of intense change, the best thing that we have to navigate periods like this is a framework, some kind of lens, some kind of mental model that helps you orient in a future that is uncertain and changing more quickly than ever. So what I'm talking about today is a working model that I'm still in the process of developing, but I wanted to share it with you guys. Hopefully it's helpful as you navigate what is an increasingly novel and interesting future, and you can participate in the fun parts of it and not get scared by it. Every meal that you've ever eaten in your life is just a form of stored sunlight. Everything in your life, all of the energy, all of the people, all of the things that you deal with, ultimately came from a single source of energy. And what I want to map for you is the framework of how that energy moves through not just electrons and true energy systems, but also through our life, through business, through money, through relationships, and build a model that helps you understand how you can navigate your own life with a little bit more intelligence. So energy starts from our sun. Some portion of it hits a field. In that field, a plant captures a small percentage of that energy through photosynthesis. And then it's stored in the form of carbs that then get eaten by you, or since we're in Texas, probably eaten by the food that you then eat, a cow or some sort. And that energy gets redeployed into action, into thought, making something useful happen in the world. And that cycle repeats over and over and over across the different areas of our life. And as a Bitcoin miner, we think about energy all the time. I mean, it's probably the thing that we obsess about more than anything. So it's very natural that I would try to find a way to map energy onto every other aspect of life, but I think it applies. So what you start out with, whether it's the sun, stranded gas, curtailed wind resource, a piece of meat, you have potential energy sitting, waiting to be used, waiting to be harnessed. Through some means, you harness that energy. As miners, we harness it through ASICs, through Bitcoin miners, and you capture and convert some amount of that. Some percentage of the potential that you have gets converted through useful work, and then you have the ability to store it. Now, Bitcoin is super unique because it is the best energy storage vehicle I believe we've ever come up with, and paints a very novel picture for how energy can carry over long periods of time. And then at some point, even though we all want to hold Bitcoin forever, the ideal holding period is forever, usually if you're living a human life, there is an opportunity to redeploy that energy into something else, another venture, increase in the quality of life, a big purchase. You have the opportunity, because you stored energy well, to redeploy it into something that matters to you. And this obviously applies to Bitcoin mining, but I think that it applies in many other aspects of your life. But the point of thinking about your life in this way, in terms of energy, is to get leverage on your efforts. So anybody that's familiar with the laws of thermodynamics knows Energy is not created or destroyed. It just changes forms. So what you see on the slide, taking 1 kilowatt hour and turning it into 10, that would be ludicrous if we're talking about it in terms of the laws of physics. But what I want to paint the picture of is that by getting leverage, finding the right sources of potential energy in your life, and then transforming them with skill, with limited inputs, you can get highly leveraged outputs. So when we think about it in terms of mining, we have a raw energy resource. I may take a kilowatt hour of energy, run it through my mining process, and get some Bitcoin. And that Bitcoin, because it holds energy so well and actually multiplies in value over time, if I wanted to trade that Bitcoin back into energy, more likely than not, I actually got a multiple of the energy that I originally put in. And whether you're talking about Bitcoin mining or a business that's built to take advantage of a market, or a relationship where you find someone who you really can invest in and know that that relationship will continue to bear fruit over and over and over again. When you think about your life in terms of energy, it allows you to see where you're getting returns on what you put in. Just like you would get a return on capital, you can get an energy return on energy. And to illustrate this point, because most people in this room would be familiar with Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining, but not know how to apply a framework like this to your real life.
BitBlockBoom started because we were outsiders and we needed a place that felt like home. Stockyards were always a place for people who didn't fit in. Let's go take a look at the cow town. Put on your hat. Let's go. Stockyards weren't just a cattle town. It was a place for cattlemen, traders, outlaws, and gamblers, people that were building something new. And that sounded familiar. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were known to spend time here, and Bonnie and Clyde stayed right here in the Stockyard Hotel. Hotels were great, but they're too normal, and Bitcoin is anything but normal. So we moved BitBlockBoom to a place with some edge and some history. They still run Longhorn Steer down this street every day, just like they did 100 years ago. And BitBlockBoom, well, it's just a few steps away. This is Mule Alley. This is where relationships are made. Bars, restaurants, rodeos, hangouts. Mule Alley is the place to come when the BitBlockBoom day is done. BitBlockBoom was built for people who didn't have a home, and the same thing applies to the stockyards. Seems like we finally found a home. See you at the stockyards.
So I have a friend who I've been friends with since my earliest days. Really, most of my first memories were filled with this person. And we now go years at a time where we don't need to talk to each other. Every time we see each other, it's like no time has passed at all. Does anybody have relationships like this? Those are the people who you have positive energy relationships with. You have such a great potential for a meaningful relationship. You have such a robust storage vehicle when you relate with the right person. And if you ever needed something, if you ever needed to deploy that stored energy in your life, you know that person would be there for you. Now, contrast that with a relationship where you might have known someone for a long time. You've done the work, you've put in the time and energy, invested into them as people, and then for whatever reason, it's a leaky energy vehicle. Either there's some hidden resentment or you have an argument that doesn't get resolved. For some reason, that energy storage vehicle is leaky. And many of us in an unexamined life don't audit our relationships in this way. We don't think about where are we putting energy out and not getting it back. Not in a transactional sense, but truly in just taking care of your own personal energy. And the reason I highlight this is because I want you to think about your life in terms of energy as a way to audit the places where you're putting something out there and not getting it back. Now, in economic terms, it's very easy to tell when you're getting a positive return on investment, when you're getting a positive return on the energy you put into something. But when we get into our regular lives, we're not as not as apt to apply these kind of mechanistic ways of thinking about it. And it's much harder to measure. When you think about a relationship, nobody's measuring their relationships in kilowatt hours, but that framework still applies and is a useful tool for you to audit all of the areas of your life. So what I want to encourage out of this, if there's one thing to take away, it's that if you think of yourself and think of your life as an energy system, you have a tool for figuring out, where are you wasting energy? Where are you putting it out, but it's not coming back to you? Are you going after sources of potential that aren't worth your time? Are you converting at a low efficiency? Are you investing into vehicles where energy doesn't stay stored for a long period of time and you have nothing left to redeploy at the end? Now, all of our areas of life interact with each other. You can think of your life as a microgrid, right? We're all self-sufficient microgrids where our health, our relationships, our businesses, money, our contributions to society, all of these aspects of life are their own energy systems, and energy moves between those systems, such that if I create a great outcome in my business, I now have potential energy to deploy into relationships, because now I just created time and freedom. If I have a great relationship that I've invested lots of energy into and it's borne fruit, more likely than not, that might lead to some opportunity to go do a venture together. This is a framework for you to understand how energy moves between the areas of your life and see where you can pull something from one area that might have seemed like an energy waste and actually take it into another area of your life. So an example of this personally, my wife and I, we lost $500,000 getting into mining. That was a horribly painful experience economically, emotionally. It was very taxing. It was not a fun period of our life. And so that seems like a total energy loss. But whether you're talking about a relationship that goes sour or a business venture that goes sour, it may feel like you've lost the energy out of that experience. There's no energy left to redeploy. But those experiences are actually wisdom. You can redeploy that energy, maybe not as money, but redeploy it as wisdom that helps you show up for another experience in your life better. And, oh man, I'm blanking on the author's name. Just wrote a great book, How to Get a Return on Failure. And the mindset of taking your life experience, the fodder of things that have happened to you that you've gone through, and using that as a source of potential energy to reinvest in doing something better, another aspect of your life, to me is the most powerful tool that we have. To use an analogy from the Bitcoin network, lots of people are mining on landfill gas. Landfill gas is the discarded waste of humanity that none of us have any desire for or use for. And yet the people on the Bitcoin network see that as a potential source of energy. Everybody else's waste that's been tossed away is actually just stored and accumulated experience and resource for somebody else to come and take advantage of and make a beautiful impact on the world in doing so that helps everybody. So if you can mine your own life for personal experience that helps you navigate it better in the future, I think that you've established a positive energy relationship with yourself. And I had one more slide that's not showing up. There we go. So the last word in this presentation was intelligence. We have a rapidly evolving future that we're all needing to learn how to navigate in real time. And I come back to a quote from one of my coaches. He says, the greatest sign of intelligence is getting what you want out of life. And I think that the best vehicle for you to get what you want out of life is to pay attention to your own microgrid. Pay attention to the way that you think about and use the energy in your life to get an outcome. Because in a world where we've gone from needing to spend a ton of energy and have animals expend energy to plant crops for us, where we might get 10% energy gains from harvest to harvest, now we live in a world where you speak the words and an outcome happens in the real world. You speak to a form of intelligence, and then your time and energy is highly, highly leveraged. In that kind of world, the most important thing is not how do you do something and can it be done, but are you doing the right thing? Are you putting your energy in the right place? And are you using it in a way that actually gets you the outcome that you want? Because many of us have access to more tools than anybody in human history has ever had access to. We don't know what to do with them. We're lacking in the discernment to know where to direct our energy. We have infinite potential, but without the right harness, there's nothing that we can do with it. So whether this was an opportunity to look at your relationships, to look at a business, to look at how you think of your personal energy and time, I hope that if nothing else, it lands. You have a fixed amount of time to deploy energy in your life, and I ask you, spend it well. Thank you.